The United Nations Humanitarian Coordination Office has confirmed that at least 10,000 bodies remain under rubble in Gaza as they fear for a worsening health situation given the arrival of high temperatures increases. Panama's Supreme Court accepted the candidacy of Jose Raul Molino for its organization Realizando Metas, in English, Achieving Goals, days before general elections in the country. Venezuela commemorates 4 years since the defeat of the maritime operation called Gideon and the civil military and police union. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The United Nations Humanitarian Coordination Office has confirmed that at least 10,000 bodies remain under the rubble in Gaza. The arrival of high temperatures raises fears of a serious health situation. Several United Nations agencies and the Palestinian government have made reference to the terrifying situation in the enclave. They claim that the entire neighborhoods were destroyed in one of the most densely populated areas on the planet. In addition to the number of bodies under rubble, they warned that there could be more than 7,500 tons of unexploded explosive, taking into account that during a brief tour, the United Nations anti-mine team found 500 kilograms in the middle of the road. In this context, the agencies urged the entry of heavy machinery to begin the removal of debris. Members of the U.S. Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, on Thursday confronted the International Court of Justice and threatened to propose sanctions against the body if it issues arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Precisely, Israeli Prime Minister called on President Joe Biden to intervene in the matter. The almost imminent decision by the international body known as the ICJ, which has been investigating accusations of war crimes committed by the Israeli military since 2014, has set off all the alarms in Tel Aviv. In this regard, although the White House declined to comment, it alleged the court has no jurisdiction over the situation. On Friday, human rights organizations reported that in the past 22 hours, the U.S. government has arrested without authorization more than 2,000 university students peacefully protesting the Israeli genocide in Gaza, which is funded by their tax dollars. U.S. university campuses hosted peaceful demonstrations nationwide until pro-Israeli police groups and state police forces turned them into war zones. In this sense, at the University of California, 200 students were arrested in less than 4 hours after being shot with rubber bullets and tear gas. On the other hand, at the University of Columbia, 400 people also were arrested in a violent eviction. In this regard, social activists denounced that President Joe Biden once again privileges Israeli interests over the young people who represent the future of his country. Pro-Palestinian protesters camped out at all of Australian universities on Friday at crack of dawn. In addition to the rejection, the genocidal offensive of Tel Aviv and Washington, protesters wanted to show their solidarity with the U.S. university campuses. As happened in other regions worldwide, pro-Israeli demonstrators attacked them. They further demand that the authorities of those higher education centers break off all relations with Israel. At the University of Sydney, the most ancient national university, there were clashes between pro-Palestinians and pro-Israelis, but they did not escalate. The Foreign Minister Mark Scott said there is room for everyone, but assured that they are working with campus security and the police.
I don't think that this movement makes Jews unsafe. I, as a Jew, do not feel unsafe marching in rallies or hanging out here. I think that making us feel unsafe is part of Israel's agenda. It's not a reflection of the reality on the ground.
For us, Colombia was first an inspiration and then a warning, an inspiration for us to set up our own camp, for us to continue to build our movement on this university, to demand our university's own divestment from Israel and cutting ties with Israeli genocide. But also now a warning that the government is willing to use quite lethal, brutal force in order to push down Palestinian protest.
Meanwhile, in Cuba, the University Student Federation ratifies on Friday its rejection of police repression against its counterparts in the United States for denouncing Israel's crimes in Palestine. The rally will be held on the steps of the University of Havana, and foreign students studying in the capital city will also be invited. The University Student Federation, at the same time, invited all workers and all good people who feel sensitized and cannot stand one more minute of Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip. At the event, they will raise their voices forcefully in support of the noble cause of the Palestinian people and against the police repression to which U.S. students are being subjected, in solidarity with the Palestinian cause and against Israeli genocide. The French government evicted the building of the prestigious Paris Science and Letters University in the middle of a student pro-Palestinian encampment, repeating the United States approach to student manifestations, but with less violence. Numerous police officers surrounded the Saint-Guillaume Street campus, where about 50 students who rejected the Israeli genocide and called for a ceasefire in Gaza and the interruption of academic relations with Israel remained. The heavily armed police surrounded the campus but did not activate any aggressive device, as they did on all university campuses in the United States. The repression has contributed to more universities around the world joining the protests. Palestinian journalists covering Gaza have been awarded the UNESCO Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize 2024, as recommended by an international jury of media professionals. The award ceremony took place on May 2nd during the World Press Freedom Conference in Santiago, Chile. This prize, established in 1997 in honor of Colombian journalist Guillermo Cano, honors the exceptional contribution to the defense and promotion of press freedom anywhere in the world, especially when this has been achieved in the face of danger.
The journalists in Gaza have been working for months on the bombardment and surrounded by dead bodies and destruction. They have endured extreme cold and hunger and thirst, and they have lost their homes and families. Yet, they continue to work with the utmost professionalism without falsifying any picture or news and without instigating anyone despite the incitement of hatred against them. I am convinced that they have become the most relevant professional model that does their utmost to convey the truth despite the sea of blood.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Friday, the Supreme Court of Justice of Panama declared that the candidacy of Jose Raul Molino, presidential candidate of the organization Achieving Goals, is not unconstitutional. In this sense, the President of the Supreme Court of Justice, Maria Eugenia Lopez Arias, communicates the decision after almost 4 days of deliberation. Jose Raul Molino is one of the front-runners according to the polls for Sunday's general elections, and his nomination is to replace former President Ricardo Martinelli, who was disqualified after being sentenced to more than 10 years in prison. Molino, 65 years old, was the minister in charge of foreign affairs back in 2012. The electoral campaign for next Sunday's general elections in Panama closed Thursday. According to the country's electoral board, 8 presidential candidates have been registered for the elections. On the other hand, polls show that 20% of the more than 1 million Panamanians with right to vote are still undecided for whom to vote. Besides President and Vice President, voters will also elect deputies to the Central American Parliament and to the National Assembly, and mayors, township representatives, and councilmen across the country. For his part, Jose Raul Molino, the candidate who occupies the Supreme Court's reflections and who replaces Ricardo Martinelli, currently in prison, promised that he will reactivate a culture of hope.
Around this Panamanian expression of Chen Chen, a whole culture of hope and change has been woven. Get ready, because with so many works and so many programs in favor of the people, a great wave of jobs will be generated and a lot of Chen Chen for all of you here.
Hours before the beginning of the period of reflection, Ricardo Lombana, aspirant to the presidency for the party Movimiento Otro Camino, referred to the atmosphere of uncertainty prevailing in a very important process for the country.
Panamanians, in a few hours, the electoral silence begins. We are entering that period that we historically use for national reflection without the Supreme Court of Justice having issued a decision regarding the constitutionality or unconstitutionality of a presidential candidacy. In addition, a few days ago a supposed independent candidate, who is on the printed ballot, irresponsibly endorsed another candidate outside of any deadline to make alliances, generating even more uncertainty.
Venezuela commemorates Friday 4 years since the defeat of the maritime operation called Gideon, where a group of mercenaries aimed at assassinating President Nicolas Maduro and converting the country into a United States protectorate. In defense, authorities of the state of La Guaira and members of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela led the commemorative event, highlighting the heroic attitude of the civic military police union. The failed operation sought to carry out a mercenary action with agents of the Administration for Drug Control linked to the sectors of the Venezuelan opposition, with the intention of overthrowing President Nicolas Maduro. Precisely, the commander of the militia of the state of La Guaira, Walner Vivas, was present to remember the actions of the Venezuelan people to defend the homeland from the imperialist attack.
Today we commemorate another date of this operation in which they tried to reverse the constitutional order and overthrow the Bolivarian revolution that our supreme and eternal commander, Hugo Chavez, made with so much effort. Today's memorial is simply a remembrance of the actions of the people in police uniforms, in army uniforms, in militia uniforms, and simply dressed as people defending the homeland against this imperialist attack.
On Thursday, an attempted riot was reported in La Pila prison, located in San Luis Potosí, north-central Mexico. Some inmates' relatives heard detonations inside the prison. The Secretariat of Public Security insisted that the incident left neither death nor injured. Meanwhile, the head of the department, Angel González Castillo, reported that the authorities quelled the disturbances and, after taking control of the prison, began a process of dialogue with the inmates. On Thursday, the Amnesty Chamber of the Special Jurisdiction for Peace in Colombia ordered 9,600 guerrilla fighters who signed the peace agreement to have their judicial records eliminated. The measure applies only to those who committed political crimes and received amnesties during the government of former President Juan Manuel Santos. This way, security agencies such as the National Police, the Registry Office, and even Interpol must eliminate from their files the data of those who benefited from this measure, clarifying that they are not linked to war crimes or crimes against humanity. The institutions have 30 days to provide information to the corresponding authorities and initiate the process of cleaning the files. On Thursday, also, Peruvian interim public prosecutor Juan Carlos Villena received in his office a delegation made up of relatives of the 50 victims of police repression on the protest against President Dina Boluarte. Victims and their families reaffirmed their demand for justice, for the lives lost, and for speedy investigation to take accountability and bring those responsible to justice. Meanwhile, in the south of the country, the leaders of the National Organization of Martyrs and Victims, who exhibited the photos of the fatal victims at the courthouse on Wednesday, requested a hearing to find out the progress of the investigations into the incident. We have a fun short break coming up right now, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin American and Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Serbia, on Thursday, the parliament approved a new cabinet led by Prime Minister Milos Vučević, with 152 votes in favor and 61 against. Vučević served as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defense. The newly elected cabinet will have 31 seats. A third of them are first-time members of the executive. After taking the oath of office, the new premier pledged to preserve the country's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. This appointment, which is part of President Alexander Vučic's government reshuffle, comes at a time of heightened tensions with Kosovo over administrative and political issues. Volcanic eruptions from Mount Ruang in central Indonesia have left houses damaged by volcanic material and burning lava on Tagulandang, a neighboring island. Authorities are deploying ships to evacuate residents to other islands. Eruptions at a remote Indonesian volcano forced more than half a dozen airports to close, with ash spreading as far as Malaysia, while authorities rushed to evacuate thousands due to tsunami fears. Mount Ruang erupted 3 times on Tuesday, spewing lava and ash more than 5 kilometers into the sky and forcing authorities to issue evacuation orders for 12,000 locals. Julius Ramapoli, head of Mount Ruang monitoring post, declared that the volcano still erupts ash and smoke above the crater.
They are the only things that we could carry. We left everything else because it was damaged.
So, if your house is destroyed, where will you go?
We don't know where to go, but since we fled the eruption, we have been sheltering at the Pentecostal church. We were scared, rocks falling down, making big noises. It's scary. I don't know how to describe it in words.
Moving into the world of sports, the president of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, presented on Thursday in a ceremony at the Olympic House in Lausanne, Switzerland, the Olympic refugee team that will participate in Paris 2024. Only 85 days before the start of the international multi-sport event to be held from July 26 to August 11th, the International Olympic Committee made official the refugee team, which will be made up of 36 athletes from 11 different countries, with presence in 12 sports. It will be the 3rd time in Olympic Games that this happens, representing more than 100 million displaced people from all over the world. It's worth noting that the Olympic refugee team will compete with its own emblem, a unifying symbol that will bring together diverse athletes and give the team its own identity. On Friday in El Salvador, more than 447 athletes from 54 nations will begin the World Junior Surfing Championship, which will last until May 12th. In this sense, the Minister of Tourism, Morena Valdez, assured that this event surpassed the record of the 2022 edition, which was of 45 countries. On her part, she also pointed out that the event not only promotes the young talent in surfing, but also positions the Central American nation as a solid destination in high-level sports. On the other hand, the Spanish Hans Odriozola, champion of the previous tournament, expressed that El Salvador has very good ways to organize this type of event. This World Championship is the 16th tournament held in the country since 2019 as part of the Surf City strategy. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.